In our last talks, we touched a few times the subject matter of self-inquiry. Or Atma Vichara or Jnana Vichara. Its maximum exponent in the last generation was Sri Bhagavan Raman Maharishi from Tiruvanmalai. No doubt an enlightened master. Self-inquiry is about a question. Who am I? People go and practice it, ask themselves, who am I? And they give all kind of answers like, I am Michael, I am Miriam, I am Mary, I am Joseph, I am a professor, I am a teacher, I am Chilean, I am Hindu, I am Christian. Even spiritual answers like, I am a jiva, I am a soul, I am the divine, I am whatever. But you have to know that any answer will be wrong. Because this is a question without an answer. Only when every answer disappears, when there is no more answers, the question disappears too. People who walk in the path of Zen will say this is a kind of koan. Yeah? Same thing. What is the sound of a clap with one hand? What can be? And people go and give all kinds of answers. And any answer, it's wrong. What is your original face? So many faces you have in your life. Face of a father, of a daughter, of a teacher, of a husband, happiness, distress. But what is your original face? Yes? The sound of a clap of one hand is silence. Your original face is emptiness. Who are you? Self-inquiry leads us to the conclusion that I am and I know it. In other words, our true nature is existence and consciousness. Or, as the Vedanta says, Sat, Chit, and of course, Ananda, bliss. But if somebody asks you, or you ask yourself, you exist? Do you exist? Obvious, yeah. You don't need to ask, nobody teach you, never. You saw it in a book, you know it. Even if you doubt it, you must exist as a doubter. So we are consciousness, or pure conscious presence, observation, perception of this great experience that is the mind, the body, and the world. The consciousness that we exist, this existential consciousness that I exist and I know that I exist, cannot be ignored, cannot be forgotten, because this is not acquired knowledge or information that we possess, but rather is what we are. You understand what I say? It is not some information. I am, and I know that I am, is what I am. However, this pure consciousness, this pure presence that is conscient, it's gradually covered by different qualities and attributes that are added. These attributes, these qualities, are not an existential expression of consciousness itself. But they originate at a much later stage in the cosmic manifestation process. These qualities or attributes stem from the thought platform, from the mind. When we read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali from the beginning, we read Yoga's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That means that yoga, or union, the one without a second, can be experienced, or it is a state where vritti nirodha, there is a cessation of the mental activity. And many people doesn't understand properly, think that we talk about yoga is a state where the mind doesn't work, there is no thoughts, no ideas, etc. But we know that thoughts, ideas, concepts is not what disturb our observation. If you meditate and your neighbor think, that doesn't disturb you. What disturbs you is when you think, your thoughts, your ideas, your mental activity. In other words, vritti nirodha means a cessation of your identification with your mental activity, with your mental modifications. And this is what Patanjali Maharishi will clarify after, in the mantra 3. Tada drashtuhu swarupevasthanam. In the mantra 3, Patanjali say, then, along with the cessation of mental modification, the observation rests in its original state. With the cessation of the identification with the mental modifications, with the mental activity, with thoughts, observation rests in his original natural state, in its own true nature. So while there is observation or perception, free from any identification with mental activity, consciousness rests in its original state. When all the identifications ceases, the consciousness returns to its original states. Simple like that. So, only when there is this cessation of identification with the thoughts, it is possible what we call the quantum jump from what you think you are to what you really are. Instead of being the doer, what we call in Sanskrit ahankara, doer. Why the doer? Because instead this identification is the feeler of the feelings, the thinker of the thoughts, the doer of the actions. Instead of the doer of actions, the beingness or the observation established in itself remains. The next sutra, the Sutra 4, say, Vritti sarupyam itaratra, in the same samadhipada. It say, in other states, there is identification with the mental modifications. In other states, there is identification with the mental activity. That means that any other state that is not observation, perception, there is identification in the level of consciousness. Or there is observation. Observe your hands, your body, your thoughts, your emotions. Be present. There is no identification, but at the moment that there is no observation, there is identification with the mental activity. The basis of such identification, the essence of that identification is an idea. I, a feeling, a concept, an emotion, I, is a thought. I is a thought. The thought that think all the thoughts. So in our conditioned states, human beings are not only thinking, but we are thought. It's near to the cogito ergo sum, the famous philosophical argument of René Descartes that say, I think, therefore I am. Almost. I think, therefore I am. But we are thought. So it's much more near Keter Shem Tov, Perek Rishon, Pasuk Nun Vav, first part, 56, where he say, כי במקום שאדם חושב, במחשבה שם הוא כולו. That is exactly. כי במקום שאדם חושב, במחשבה שם הוא כולו. Because in the place where a person, a human being, think, in the thought, there, in the thought, there is all the person or human being. In the very moment that this I, thought, idea, concept, feeling, emotion is accepted, the identification is born. I means identification. I is the name of identification is I. When you say I, that is the identification. That can be identification with a name, a profession, a form, an ideology, a story, the story of a form, etc., etc. The identifications transform the impersonal in somebody and create the others simultaneously. Means identifications create me as a separate entity and create what is not me, all the others. This identification or ego is the basis of illusion, the basis of Maya, is our slavery. And freedom, moksha, enlightenment, is absence of identification. This identification develop until the belief that we are something, somebody a I inside a form or a body and a mind, as this I reside inside this form and this body and this mind. And these beliefs is very important to understand. These beliefs create or is the basis of the dual reality, subject-object. According to duality, our experience is divided in two parts. A subject inside a form and a mind that perceive, know, observe, see, and an object that is perceived, observed, known. This object is perceived as totally separate from the subject. And this places us on a platform that comprises three different aspects that the Vedanta call them Jnatri, the knower, Jnaya, the object of knowledge, and Jnanam, the knowledge. Three. This is the knowledge that we say is mental knowledge. It is intellectual knowledge. It's not the real wisdom because arise from the dual relative platform. And you can go and try as a Jnatri to accumulate Jnanam about different things. You can call it spiritual Jnanam, about God, about Devas, about Brahman, about everything. But it's, as long as still is in the dual platform, it is not absolute. It is only a Jnatri, a knower, identify with a form and a mind. No. Look, seek in its environment, its answers. Seek in that environment his purpose in life, his reasons, meaning of its existence. But of course, in this situation, we'll never get answer to its problems. Okay? The Atma Bodha, in his verse 41, tell us, Jnatri Jnaya Jnaya Vedaha Parinatmani Vidyate Chidanandaika Rupatvat Dipate Swayamevahi. That explains that in the Supreme Self, in consciousness, in the Atma, there are no distinctions such as knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge, on account of its being of the nature of endless bliss. It does not admit such distinctions. Within itself, it alone shines by itself. And you know, this same wisdom, this same teaching we can find in the Moreh Nevuchim of the Rambam, Maimonides, what do we call in English, Moreh Nevuchim, Guide to the Perplexed. In Chelek Rishon, Perek Samech Chet, that means first part, chapter 68. When the Maimonides refers to the divine, Kadosh Baruch Hu, as the Shehu HaDe'ah HaYodea VeHaYadua, He is the knowledge, the knower, and the known. That means same principle, same idea. Of course, we cannot separate. Consciousness is the one without the second. Yeah. This dual platform belongs to the illusion that is created by identification. Then we arrive this identification with a form, with a mind, with a body, lead us to live according to what we call the corporal concept of life. But the corporal concept of life doesn't mean only to identify yourself with the body. That means much more than that. Not only you identify with the body, but you conceive everything and everyone as bodies. That is to say, this table is a body, that chair is a body, you as a person are a body, Michael is a body, our planet is a body, etc. We only go and perceive bodies. And only all existence for us, all life is made of bodies. And even when we look for the essence of life, the basis of existence, we look for bodies. Neutrons, protons, electrons, fermions, quarks, antiquarks, leptons and antileptons, bosons, micro bodies is the only thing that we can understand, because we identify ourselves with a body, so anything that exists must be a body. However, such identification with a body, with a certain form, remains on the mental plane, since it is no more than a mental interpretation, nothing else. We need to differentiate. Unlike the existential realization of being or existing and being aware of it, many of that attributes or qualities that are attributed to our real nature, to consciousness, correspond only to mental interpretations. These are not authentic expressions of consciousness, authentic experiences. And this is so important because these attributes that we add to consciousness are the main factor in forgetting our real nature. Many people think, on my path happens to me this kind of argues with religious people, especially people who have follow a personal God. They say, how can be an illusion or Maya that is illusion? How can be that Maya greater, bigger than God? How can be that Maya can cover Shiva? How Maya can cover Krishna? How can Maya cover Vishnu? How can be bigger than? And we need to understand that identification does not cover consciousness, obvious. Just as, for example, a man or a horse in a painting doesn't cover the canvas. Yeah? A painting, you see these paintings, Chinese paintings especially, the people are very, very small, mountains are very, very big. You see? You cannot say that that small man can cover the canvas. But yes, that small form can cover the canvas. not in the same way that a piece of fabric can cover a form, or a person. I want to cover a Gopal, and I put a fabric here, I don't see Gopal, I cover him. It's not in that sense. But it's through identification. That means that if my attention is directed to that man or a horse or small form in the painting, deviate my attention in such a way that I don't perceive the canvas at all. It's like to say that, for example, a movie can cover the screen of the TV. How a movie can cover a screen? That is impossible. The movie is projected in the screen. However, the plot can attract our attention and make us forget about the screen. So in that way, the movie can cover the screen completely. Likewise, although illusion does not cover consciousness, it seems to cover it. Because of our conditioned way of feeling, thinking, and behaving. That is what we mean when we say that consciousness is covered. The self that exists and know that exists is always perceived, every single moment. As long as you are alive, you are there. You are with yourself 24/7. I am with myself. Yes. Therefore, beingness, or what you are, is always present. Obviously, you enjoy the sound of the birds we hear, or you enjoy the beautiful trees here in the ashram that you see. But clearly, you don't think that you are that sound of the birds or those trees. You know you are the subject that perceives them. You are the perceptor, or the perceptor of those sounds and form. How we know, why we make this division? Because these birds, the sound of the birds and the trees and the people and the tables appears and disappears. They come and go. Now, if you hear a person talk, you don't identify yourself with that person talk or with that sound. If you see something, you hear something, you meet somebody, you don't identify yourself with it. Why? Because all these people, sounds, forms come and go. And it is obvious that you are the one who perceives it. The subjectivity that perceives it. That exists before these sounds appear, during and after they go. In that way, our identification, it's always with what is always with us. In the same way, we know that we are not our hunger, our sadness, our happiness, because these come and go. They are not part of our beingness. They appear and disappear. The same should be with our thoughts, ideas, concepts, conclusions, all this mental activity. They cannot be part of what we are either. because they appear and disappear. Nor can we identify with our bodily sensations. We have all feel in some moment this bodily discomfort in some way or another. Yeah? Pain of, I don't know, headache, leg, something, belly. And this disturbance come and go too. Discomforts that come and go, but too, this cannot be part of our true nature or what we are, because they come and disappear. So we can say that we are aware of our bodily sensations in the same way that we are aware of the singing of the birds or the trees around us. These sensations come and go, appear and disappear, while the presence of the observation, what we really are, remains. It seems to the vast majority of human beings that they are the body, simply because the mistaken impression that the body is always present and never change. However, our physical form is not always present, and it mutates constantly. Our body changes all the time, but it's changing, it's slow, like a burning candle. If we sit in front of a burning candle when we do Tratak, or the candles of Shabbat, and you look at them directly all the time, you will see they don't change. But if you go out of the room and you come back in another 2 hours, you will be aware that they change. You will perceive the change. And you will be aware that these candles are consuming every single moment. And the same thing, the same constant change happens with the body. If you don't see a person for 2-3 years and you meet, you will see, and you will say, wow, how we change. It is incredible. And it is very interesting because if for a moment we close our eyes and perceive our body directly without any mental interpretation, without identification with the mental modifications, you will see that we don't perceive directly a form. If we pay attention to the true and real experience, authentic experience that we have of our body, and not to the ideas that we have about it, not the mental interpretation that we carry in our mind about the body, but the direct experience of it, we will see that every sensation about the body appears and disappears, come and go. We will see that our direct sensations of our body are not constant, appear and disappear. However, the conscious presence of observation that we really are remains before, during, and after our perceptions. So the form that we perceive in front of a mirror of ourselves, it is not the form of what we are, but it is the form with which we identify ourselves. The shape that we see in a mirror, the shape that we see reflected in the mirror is not what we are, but the shape of the idea that we carry in our mind. What we really are is the perception of this body, of this form. We are not these feelings or emotions. An emotion cannot perceive. An emotion cannot experience. We are not the thoughts. A thought cannot be aware, experience. We are not a form. A shoulder cannot perceive or experience. The experience or the perception itself, that you are. The perception of this great experience that is the mind, the feelings, the emotions, the body and its sensations, and the world.